Happy Friday. You made it. Good morning. Vibes aren't exactly high outside. In fact, it looks kind of sketchy. It's been a little tempestuous all morning long. What did you say the miles per hour was of the wind today, Lucas, when you called me this morning?
In the 30s?
Not ideal.
Tempestuous.
It's a big word, isn't it?
Very scholastic by you.
You like that? Make sure I used it correctly. Perhaps we get an Urban Dictionary reading of tempestuous by the end of the show. Who's to say? 615-737-1045 is the number. You can join the discussion at any point. We would be happy to have you if you are out on the roads and listening to us today. If your work involves being outside and things of that nature, hopefully you're not outside today, but, be safe. Head on a swivel, all that kind of stuff. F&M Bank Chat, ready for you to interact. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. Jump in there. Get to your comments. You can live stream the show, hang out in studio with Lucas Panzica and myself. That is the aforementioned Lucas Panzica. Good morning, bud.
Good morning. Stay safe out there.
So, speaking of head on a swivel, what do you make of the news this morning that Jerod Mayo is going to be the next head coach of the most successful franchise in the NFL in the last, century of football? Jerod Mayo is going to be the next coach of the New England Patriots. He's 37 years old. He immediately becomes the youngest head coach in the NFL. He is somebody who, of course, Vols fans know very well. I know he's somebody, or I learned he's somebody that Ramon Foster knows very well this morning. And I know a lot of Vols and Vols fans are celebrating for him. I know a lot of Patriots fans, of course, his career there, regarded as one of the smartest players to come through in New England, which is not something that gets tossed around very often. There's a lot of great and smart players that have been through the Patriots organization over the course of the last 24 years of Bill Belichick-led football. It's just not the one that it seems everybody thought that it might be that was getting the job. What happened there? Did you read Diana Rossini's report this morning with the Athletic Patriots writers?
It was you, Jerod. It was always you.
Literally. It's in his contract. You think that's what it says? It was you, Jerod. It was always you. Signed, Bob Kraft. That is the case, apparently. This was something that was built into his contract. In March, Robert Kraft, this is courtesy of theathletic.com, in March, Robert Kraft said that Mayo had no ceiling on his ability to coach. He called him an heir apparent. So, okay, I guess we all just ignored everything else around that. The Patriots, finalizing what they've long planned, writing it into his contract last January, that Mayo would succeed Belichick as the next head coach. Because they did that, and this is an important part as well, and because they communicated that with the league, they were not required to conduct a full coaching search following the Rooney Rule. They said, nah, we're good. We'll let you know. Here's the deal. And he is obviously a minority candidate. So I don't know that if they had tried to do this with Josh McDaniels a couple of years ago, that it would not require a full-on Rooney Rule coaching search. But either way, somebody in New England just gaslit the entire NFL news cycle for the better part of 7 months.
We operated for months under the presumption that Mike Vrabel is not going to be the head coach of the New England Patriots, not because the Patriots already have a system in place, but because the Titans ain't letting that guy go. We were right, just in a completely different way to get there, where all along the Patriots were never going to hire Mike Vrabel to be the next head coach.
It's incredible.
And the Titans fired Mike Vrabel.
Nobody knew that they had this provision in his reworked contract from January until, conveniently, last night.
In fact, it looked like they were cooking up ways inside that building to oust Jerod Mayo with reports that he rubs people the wrong way.
There is, so, and we're not here to, well, we can recklessly speculate. Do you want to?
About what?
I'll get to it. Now, I don't know who, but somebody in the Patriots organization wanted Mike Vrabel to be the head coach. Bob Kraft, clearly, based on the decisions that were made with his organization, and Jonathan Kraft is also mentioned in this article as Robert and Jonathan Kraft stuck with their plan. So that's being attributed to both men in the Kraft family who are overseeing the day-to-day operations of the New England Patriots franchise. But somebody in that building wanted Mike Vrabel to be the head coach and just spent all kinds of media capital connections trying to get something out there. Ben Volen, home run hire, home run replacement for Bill Belichick is Mike Vrabel. But remember, and this is why it's important to be discerning in these things, it was not sources with the Patriots. Sources close to the Patriots is what was in Ben Volen's report. So it was not New England sources that he was citing. He was citing people close to the organization. Now, that's maybe a small thing, but I think in the context of stuff like this, it matters.
How are Patriots fans feeling today?
They've been gaslit too, which may have been somebody's intent to start that kind of momentum for Mike Vrabel, the idea of Mike Vrabel to kind of test the waters with it, whether you get to somebody on sports talk radio or you link it to a reporter and Greg Bedard puts all this stuff out there, right?
Now, nobody's blindsided by the idea of Jerod Mayo being the successor to Bill Belichick. That's been talked about for years.
No, Lucas, but this was a whole, for sure, but this was a whole kind of, I don't want to call it a campaign, but in retrospect, it kind of feels that way by somebody to soft float the idea to Patriots fans of Mike Vrabel as the next head coach, and the way that NFL media started to circle around it because it's interesting, right? It's a very interesting idea. It's like when we asked, this was a couple of years ago, Vrabel going through the 2021 season. He ends up winning Coach of the Year after that. They get the number 1 overall seed, and they clinch the division in Houston, and we're asking about the idea of being Coach of the Year. And he said, he cited Ron Rivera as saying something that he quoted in that moment, is that there are some things that are important and there are some things that are interesting. Coach of the Year is probably just something that's interesting. I'm fascinated by this. I think this is incredible. And I think Bob Kraft just pulled up. I mean, it's not a heist because he had the guy the whole time. So it's not like he did anything, but what do you think he's thinking today as all this is coming out there and whomever it is gets it out there that this was in Jerod Mayo's contract the whole time and he's taking pictures with Vrabel and smiling next to Vrabel and sitting in the box with Vrabel and all this stuff. I love how TMZ the NFL has gotten. I know it probably drives fans crazy, and most of you are just here for football. By the way, we're going to talk actual football today, guys. I haven't talked about a football game. I haven't talked about matchups or quarterback play or anything like that. It feels like for damn near a week.
I feel like I had to push you to talk about football today.
It's been a pretty compelling news cycle.
It has been a very compelling news cycle. But I'm glad I could break you out of the TMZ gossip columns for a couple of segments to talk about the few games of actual football we have remaining.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you for your sacrifice. The audience, make sure that everybody attributes the fact that we're talking actual football today to Lucas Panzica. Would you like roses? What do you want? What are you seeking there in letting everybody know that?
I like stargazers, lilies.
Oh, those are a kind of flower?
Elite flower.
Elite flower. Can we get Lucas Panzica's pedal rankings by the end of the Panzica pedal minute?
That's just what Megan likes. So send him to the station, and I can give him to my girlfriend.
So you're going to re-gift them. Smart by you. Excellent. 615-737-1045 is the number. Sue Ann is in the chat. She says, Buck Kraft is thinking, gotcha. But who did he get? That's the thing. He got his guy the whole time. Bob Kraft, he's in a press conference in March calling this man the heir apparent. Did people just kind of shrug it off and be like, yeah, whatever? I think it's going to add such a interesting wrinkle. And by the way, they hire a coach before they hire a GM in New England.
Yes. Which
kind of shows you the prioritization there. And now one of these 8 jobs that was open, the Patriots, which is the job that just most recently came available, it's the first one off the board.
Congrats to Jerod Mayo.
Truly. I know a lot of people from his connections back to Knoxville and just across the league and former teammates and stuff like that, people that he's worked with. He's got a fascinating story. Again, it's really well documented. The Athletic has done just such a great job this week throughout the course of this, reporting on all the different elements and angles of these coaching hires. Because I had no idea that he left football for a period of time after he retired there, after 8 years in New England. Explored other interests, sat on the board of a healthcare company. Part of the reason Kraft is so enamored by Mayo is because, again, from theathletic.com, is because of how well-rounded Mayo is. While Mayo has been credited with being one of the smartest players to ever come through Gillette Stadium, he's also someone who spends free time theorizing about how blockchain technology could solve the healthcare backlog. Does that fix their offensive line? Either way, congrats to Jerod Mayo, the next coach, the guy after the guy.
I'm trying to figure out, is Jerod Mayo the first former Tennessee volunteer football player to be a head coach in the National Football League?
You would probably be able to answer that better than I would, but I mean, there's not one that jumps off the page.
I'm working on it.
To be a head coach?
I can't think of one. Plenty that have been coordinators or assistants. I cannot think of an NFL head coach at any point in NFL history that played his football at Tennessee.
Brandon Rushing seems to think so, that you are correct in this, that this is the first former Vol to become a head coach in the NFL. We can look it up. We can also take phone calls. 615-737-1045 is the number. Cooper Petagna is also going to join us. He has a fascinating background of experience. He's a national recruiting analyst for 247 Sports. But when I read you the list of programs in major Power 5 college football that this man has worked with, Alabama, LSU, Cincinnati, Michigan, Washington, and Oregon, he's going to talk to us about Nick Saban and this recruiting situation and how much of it is actually conspired to run, as Deion Sanders says, to run the greatest coach in the history of college football kind of out of the sport. That's next. Welcome back to the show. We will get back into the Titans coaching search, where Mike Vrabel might land, and the options that are on the table for him now that Jerod Mayo has become the next head coach of the New England Patriots. But obviously, there was massive news across the world of college football this week with Nick Saban announcing his retirement after 17 years at the University of Alabama. And so to ask somebody the question, Cooper Petagna is here with us, courtesy of 247 Sports. He's their national recruiting analyst. I feel that you are one of the most qualified people for me to ask this question, Cooper, and thank you for taking some time. Is he the greatest recruiter in the history of college football?
Absolutely. You know, in my opinion, I got to work for him in 2014, got to see it up close and personal, and he's tremendous, man. I think everybody knows, obviously, the win-loss record, the pedigree just in terms of the championships he brought to Tuscaloosa. But to be able to do all the things that he was able to do during his time in Alabama, wear so many hats and juggle so many different things and still keep his eye on the ball when it came to talent acquisition, understanding the importance of getting the best players from all around the country into his program. I've never seen anything like it.
Obviously, people in this part of the country in particular understand the world of recruiting and things like that. But on a granular level, the way that the machine works and just that level of grind that it is on the people responsible for recruiting and how many different people it takes to pull this off at major Power 5 college football levels, you having experience at all manner of different programs from Alabama, LSU, Michigan, and Washington, and others. What can you tell the audience about just how just the scope of what it is that undertaking is?
Yeah, it's a lot. You know, it started with Saban when he got to Alabama in 2007. He really kind of created the NFL front office model and brought that into the college world, and then everybody soon thereafter followed quickly. What I would say, when I was there in 2014, just for 1 year, I mean, the operation was robust. And, you know, I got the opportunity to work in Michigan and to work in Washington and Oregon, all these places. Several years later, they were still playing catch up to what it was like at 2014 at Alabama. So he got them a magnificent head start. And then these guys like Kirby and Billy Napier's of the world and Lane Kiffin's have learned all that from him. Now you see all these resources, especially down south and in the SEC. These programs are so invested. And that being said, whatever that old playbook was, you can completely rip it up, throw it out the window, because the way that the game has changed in the last 3 years with NIL and the transfer portal, it's been pretty crazy. So just, you know, when I left the space 3 years ago, if I were to get back into it today, it would be a completely different job than it was back then.
National recruiting analyst for 247 Sports, Cooper Petagna, here with us on 104.5 The Zone. You can follow him on X at cpetagna247.
So, Cooper, having worked under Nick Saban, Jim Harbaugh, Lane Kiffin, Chris Peterson, what made working under Saban unique from your other stops from a recruiting perspective, given how much influence he had on a lot of those other names?
I think his ability to galvanize a building, you know, I mean, think about all those names, right? I mean, all these guys are successful head coaches at SEC programs. There's a lot of ego. There's a lot of pride. There's a lot of competition within that building. These guys want to be the best. So not only do you have that with the players where you have a competitive environment, but you have that in terms of the coaches as well. His ability to get everybody to check that ego at the door and then build towards one goal, I think was unique. You know, everybody wants to talk about the type of coach and the type of player developer he was. And he was exceptional in that realm, but his ability to really get everybody rowing in the same direction, I think from a psychological standpoint, I think that's always something he had a ton of interest in. And, you know, when I was there, like I said, I was just starting my career. I was an unpaid intern. I was a fly on the wall. But everybody in that building, it doesn't matter who you were, felt like they knew their role, what they had to get done, and there was a standard that you had to meet. And his ability to make sure that everybody in the building knew that and understood that, hey, this was an operation where we expect to win. That is the outcome at the highest level. It's pretty special. And I never in all my stops have I seen that anywhere else.
So right after that announcement of Nick Saban retiring earlier this week, you start to see news trickle in. 5-star wide receiver Ryan Williams, previously committed to Alabama, decommits from the Tide. Your colleague Steve Wiltfong has crystal balled a local guy here in our backyard, 5-star quarterback George McIntyre, now to Tennessee, where Alabama was obviously in the mix. At surface level, it's easy to see that stuff and tie it directly to the retirement announcement. But do you do that, kind of being more on the inside, or do you think that those moves were going to happen anyway? And what should we anticipate as far as the recruiting fallout following that news?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think it's largely going to depend on who they hire. And I think the hard part is whatever names are out there, Kalen DeBoer, Mike Norvell, Dabo Sweeney, any one of those guys, maybe there's another name out there that we're not even talking about. It's going to be hard to live up to, right, in terms of Nick Saban, his greatness, and you talked about the structure and the continuity. And I think a lot of people, like, we use words like machine, and people always used to say, well, it recruits itself. It doesn't. I mean, you take that guy out of it, it does not recruit itself. He's a little bit of the magic potion. Now, in terms of guys like George McIntyre, you got to give credit where credit is due. I know it hadn't happened yet, but I think Tennessee is in a great spot, as you alluded to. Our friend Steve Wiltfong putting in his crystal ball, and Josh Heupel has done a tremendous job, and Ryan Williams, Alabama, even though that he was committed there, they were going to have a fight on their hands regardless, and it seemed like Auburn was really kind of in a position to seize momentum. So now more than ever, I think Alabama is in a strange state of flux, right? At least in the past 72 hours, where they're going to try to figure out, okay, who can step into the shoes? We know he's not going to be Nick Saban, charter his own path, but still kind of have that Urban Meyer to Ryan Day continuity that we're looking for. So it's going to be a fascinating day or two here until this one gets buttoned up.
In 17 years at Alabama, 17 seasons, what was the most important recruiting class that Nick Saban ever had?
Ooh, that's a good question. We got a show on Monday that we're going to talk about that, but I don't know. I mean, you can put your fingers on a lot of them. I mean, I think when I was there in 14, and I just, talking about that one from experience, it might have been the 7, I don't know what class it was, but the Micah Fitzpatrick class was pretty interesting. When they started kind of, migrating out of the Southeast a little bit, they go out to California and Fresno, they grab Jonah Williams. When they go into New Jersey and they grab Micah Fitzpatrick, it was kind of like, whoa. All right, now the reach of this program at a national level, even though that, you're not going to leave home often, but when you do, you can go out and get a guy like Bryce Young. You can go to different areas of the country. That was like, all right, the long arm of Nick Saban was something that we really haven't seen before, maybe outside of Pete Carroll in his heyday at USC. So to be able to do that out of the Southeast, pick from the most talented region of the country, and then just say, you know what, maybe there is a BPA option, best player available, or I got to go to the Northeast or I got to go to the West Coast, and I can do it. That was illuminating, and I think that kind of charted the path for the rest of college football now, where you see national recruiting and people don't even really blink at it anymore.
Cooper, one last one for you, and we appreciate you spending some time. Is Josh Pate as obnoxious at the office as he is when he comes on my radio show?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
All the time. Not as good at ping pong as people think. He does his own makeup. He's very high maintenance. Yes, he is. If you think he's a diva, he's absolutely a diva. But we love him, and he's the best. At
C. Petagna, 247. You can check him out on 247 Sports. Of course, you can check out the podcast as well, the Football Recruiting Podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on their YouTube channel. Cooper, thank you for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
That's Cooper Petagna with us on 104.5 The Zone, the national recruiting analyst at 247.
I have an answer to your question.
About Pate being a diva?
No, we knew that. But you are too. I
just want people to know that he's closer to me than he projects. I think that this everyman shtick that Pate's been pulling for years upon years upon years, the working man, the blue-collar man, I only wear white T-shirts. You know who's wearing a suit jacket now? I see you, Pate. I see you.
Yeah, but he actually was a working and blue-collar man.
No, I was not.
So there's some authenticity in that. But my answer would be the class of 2008 that included Julio Jones and Marcel Darius and Courtney Upshaw and Mark Barron and all of these, Mark Ingram, all these, and Terrence Cody that you thought, oh.
Mount Cody.
Right. It was like, okay, this is happening.
They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, they're scarier than you.
Yeah. After going 7-6 in year one, Nick Saban shot Alabama to the top of the mountain from a recruiting perspective very, very quickly. So that, to me, would be the answer, the 2008 signing class.
Did you notice that? I'm sure you did, that note about, if I was to get back into the business on the working end of things as opposed to doing it from a media analyst standpoint, it would be a completely different job than the one that he was doing for all of those different programs.
Change the game.
Brave new world. All right. So we will, we have a giveaway. When do you want me to tell people that we have a giveaway and not to call yet?
Yeah, at the end of this segment.
Not yet.
So just hang with us through the segment. We've got an opportunity for you. If you call right now, you're not getting it. But if you hang with us till the end of the segment, caller 5 will get our weekly Feed Your Flock giveaway feature, courtesy of Hattie B's, a catered meal for your business, for your party, whatever it may be, $225 value of the best hot chicken in town. At the end of this segment, you will hear the cue to call.
615-737-1045 is the number. Don't call yet for the giveaway. We have phone calls to take. Joe in Clarksville is next. Hey, Joe.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
So I just wanted to see what your guys' take was on the Titans not, pursuing trading Mike Vrabel, just because it seems like he's a highly respected coach around the league, and with those picks, with a new coach and newish GM, you could get more picks for this coach coming in. Obviously, it's you want to get a head coach in sooner than later, but I just kind of wanted to see what your guys' take was on that, and why they did or didn't do that. But I'll hang up and listen to what you guys have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you for the call, Joe. But I do think you answered your own question because of the timeline. The coach has to be a willing participant in the trade. That would put you so far behind. And whatever picks that you might garner in return, I know the idea of just this nebulous idea of picks, right? There was no trade, so there was no tangible pick swap for you to kind of sink your teeth into. You come up with all these different trade manipulations if you wanted to, but the whole reason that they didn't do it that way is, one, he has to be willing, and two, they don't have time to screw around because you saw how many jobs came open within the time span that their job came open. Now, what do you make of this?
Well, and hang on. The one team that they would have done a trade with had a clause to promote Jerod Mayo in-house, so that didn't matter anyway.
Sure.
So if you're still upset that why would the Titans fire Mike Vrabel instead of trading him to the Patriots, that's done and dusted now. Jerod Mayo was always going to be the head coach. We're now finding out.
Maybe I misunderstood him. I think he was talking about the league in general. I thought he mentioned the Patriot situation.
Maybe I just assumed that then because that's the only situation that was tied to a Mike Vrabel trade.
Sure. That was the only one that was outwardly discussed. And had the most steam behind it, not the idea that, okay, so there's breaking news in the NFL about a general manager hire. I don't know if it's Laser Light Show worthy, but I do think that this element of it is notable. So, does the name Adam Peters mean anything to you?
Of course, San Francisco.
Assistant general manager there.
Yeah, was Titans requested to interview him.
Do you remember what happened of that request to interview Adam Peters?
Declined?
He declined their request.
When they were searching for John Robinson's replacement.
To interview with the team. He was the consensus best available personnel guy out there, and he said, nah, I'm good on that job.
What's the news?
He's going to be the next general manager of the Commanders. So this is reported by Adam Schefter 5 minutes ago. Season's first general manager hire. Commanders are hiring 49ers assistant GM Adam Peters as their GM, sources tell ESPN. Peters won Super Bowls while working in New England and Denver and has been in San Francisco since 2017, helping build one of the NFL's top rosters. So this was the guy that was directly below John Lynch in the org chart of how their front office is set up. And, of course, people like Rand Carthon are obviously involved in that. But this is the guy that everybody says and talks about in the league as being the best equipped to be the next general manager in the league.
Who else needs to make general manager hires?
Carolina.
New England, who has a head coach but not a general manager. And Vegas.
Vegas does not have a GM.
And the Chargers.
Because they fired them both at once.
Yes. So the Falcons are conducting a coaching search with Terry Fontenot already in place. And the Titans obviously are with Rand Carthon.
What? We have no idea, but I'm dying to know why he turned down that job interview, because it was who? There was only 2 opportunities for a general manager last year. It was Tennessee and Arizona.
Correct. And Arizona hired out of Tennessee.
Monty Ossenfort.
And now, no, Pittsburgh had an opening, right? Because wasn't Ryan Cowden talked about, or was that 2 years ago?
That was 2 years ago, because they went through this whole thing where the GM was retiring, but he stayed to do the last draft.
Yeah, he
and
picked
then,
Kenny Pickett.
I'm blanking. It's Omar something, the general manager in Pittsburgh. I apologize. I don't remember the name off the top of my head.
You're right. That was 2 years ago.
But I do. Yeah, that was 2 years ago. Last year it was just Tennessee and Arizona, and I don't know that he was ever requested in Arizona and declined it as well, but I know he was requested to interview here and declined. And I would just be curious to know why. Maybe he wants to hire his own coach, and there was already a coach in place here. I'm speculating at this point. I have no idea. Trey is in Nashville up next. Hey, Trey.
What's going on, Bucky?
How are you?
How y'all doing today? Dude, I seen Rand Carthon, his explanation about the future and what he thought about, the pathway of the Titans. And it was disgrace that he didn't have an answer. It's the win championships and the win Super Bowls. Everybody knows that. To me, that's like a slap in Miss Amy's face. That's all I'm got to say, buddy. Have a good day.
Thank you, Trey. That's all you have to say. It's rather inflammatory, right? But, I mean, to Trey's point, and not to revisit the press conference, because I'm sure many of you are tired of hearing media people revisit the press conference. I get that. That is the best way to answer the question and just get everybody off your ass, Just say to win Super Bowls. That's the vision. That there's this whole, it's just.
That's the easy out, right?
You don't, the thing about these press conferences is you don't actually have to say anything.
Which Amy has said that in one way, in so many words, in her sit down with Mike Keith and her long statement.
Okay, but Lucas, the person that they put out in front of media to answer questions did not answer it that way.
It would have made his life easier to just echo that piece of it, right? Omar Khan is the name we were unable to come up with for those screaming at the radio, including our guy, Ramon Foster.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ramon. Coming up next, Lucas has an SEC stat of the day. There's all kinds of Saban stats that we have not yet gotten to. Don't forget that Coach Dave McGinnis is going to be on with us in the second hour. Mike Giardi, as a matter of fact, of the Boston Sports Journal. He'll be on later to talk about what he makes of this Vrabel situation and Jerod Mayo's hire in New England today. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. All right. Now you can call 615-737-1045. Caller number 5 is going to win what from Hattie B's, Lucas?
A catered lunch for 15. Whether you own a local business, whether you're having a party, it's the Feed Your Flock feature, courtesy of Hattie B's. 615-737-1045, the number, a $225 value. Be sure to get the Hattie B's app in order to be able to use this feature. But caller 5 now will get a free catered lunch from the best hot chicken in Nashville.
Maybe you're just a glutton. It's okay. You don't have to own a business. You don't have to be throwing a party. Maybe you just like a bunch of hot chicken. I'm not going to judge you. We support you. While Lucas is giving away the Feed Your Flock feature, I'll take some phone calls. Let's go to one of our favorites, Hungwell and Nash.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
Good.
Hey, I was just sitting here and wanted to make the point that there's never been a woman coach in the NFL or the NBA, and, why is that? I know Lucas has got to take up for Amy. He's probably friends with her. Maybe he'd be happy with a non-binary or a transgender coach, and I'll hang up and listen.
Okay. Did you get all that?
I did. Very, very intelligent call. The intelligence just seeps through the phone line.
What? I don't understand the point.
There wasn't one.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. God. So, with everything that the Titans, well, what? Okay, so let's dig into this a little bit. Are we still? And listen, if you're of that opinion, are we gonna probably point and make fun of you? Yeah, I mean, just straight up. But there is a lot of charged stuff around a female owner that I cannot for the life of me understand. What has that got to do anything with the Titans coaching search? If there were female candidates being discussed, there are not presently, we would talk about them in the same way that we talk about all these other people. The Titans did employ, in fact, the Titans have one of the more diverse staffs in the NFL. Lori Locust, the defensive line coach. I don't know that Coach Locust would be up for a head coaching job or a coordinator job or anything of the like, but I don't know. What the hell does it matter? It's not like football's that hard. Come on. The idea that and by the way, the idea that there aren't female coaches out here doing it just as well as male coaches are is completely nonsensical. Look around. Becky Hammonds is one of the best coaches in basketball. Now, I know that she's had a bit of scandal come her way in the last couple of months, but as far as the coaching goes, there's been no disputing about that. There's just I don't understand why. I just think people like that hate women. Is that fair? The people who are overt with whatever. What did he throw at you? Non-binary, transgender, all kinds of other stuff. I just assume people like that hate women. They pretend to like women very much, but actually they hate women in the way that they talk about women and treat women and all of these things.
Austin Stanley of A to Z Sports texted us, said, anyone calling in with the name Hungwell, probably a pretty insecure guy.
Well, I don't like to assume.
I will.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about the SEC. Let's talk about Nick Saban and Josh Heupel in the SEC. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about the SEC. Let's talk about Brian Kelly and Greg Sankey in the SEC. Let's talk about sex.
Let's talk about the GOAT. There's too many stats to run through on why Nick Saban is the greatest of all time, but I compiled a couple that I think really highlights it. So we start with 28-3 against former assistants. Buck, can you name the three?
I was responding to a text. What'd you say to me?
Nick Saban, 28-3 against former assistants.
Okay.
Name the three.
Kirby. Jimbo. Sark?
Sark. Look at you. Big college football guy over here.
See, I can multitask.
11
How does it feel to not be listened to?
11
Does it
SEC.
hurt?
I'm used to it. 11 SEC titles, 7 national championships. Since 2007, Nick Saban has never won less than 10 games in one single season. And 44 first-round draft picks stacked up against 29 total losses as the head coach at Alabama. Buck, how many draft picks, first-round draft picks, does the University of Tennessee have in the history of its program?
35.
45.
Oh, okay.
40. We've got Saban beat by 1. But
You beat Saban?
in 17 years, Nick Saban has produced more first-round draft picks than the University of Tennessee has in its entire existence. And to be fair, than the majority of college football teams have in their entire existence.
It's so ridiculous.
Bama had how many draft picks, first-round draft picks, before Nick Saban was hired in the history of their program?
35. I'll stick with
26.
That number. Okay.
26. They went from having 26 first-round picks in the history of their program to now a total of 70 after the run of Nick Saban. I mentioned the 29 losses. Butch Jones had 27 in 5 seasons, just to put that into some context.
Somebody in the YouTube chat, Mike Cole, just said, how many actually produced? What does it matter? It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. They were productive college football players when he had them.
Yeah.
What did they produce? The NFL is completely out. I mean, I know Saban was in the NFL for a period of time. That's not the point. Like what a ridiculous question. How many actually? Now maybe he's asking in all seriousness, like how many panned out, and maybe I'm taking it sarcastically because it's impossible for me to determine your tone by just reading a message. But like to come in here and say how many actually produced, which is the way that I'm reading it. Maybe I'm being unfair.
How many Heisman winners did Alabama have as a program before Nick Saban was hired?
Tell me.
0. Nick Saban with 4. Can you name them?
Ingram, Henry, Tua?
No.
Oh, Devontae Smith.
Yes. And the most recent one, Bryce Young.
Oh, I just completely went blank on Bryce Young. I knew there was a quarterback. I'm like, where's the quarterback?
And my personal favorite, the most impressive, in my opinion, during Nick Saban's 17-year run at Alabama, any player that played all 4 years, freshman through senior year, for Nick Saban, won at least one national championship.
That is an insane stat.
Over the course of 17 seasons. That means any student that was an undergrad at Alabama from freshman through senior year during the Saban run got to experience at least one national championship. In some cases, 2. In some cases, 3.
And the rest of the sports world hates you for it. I just want you to know that. Hates your joy, hates your happiness, hates your football team. You honestly, before you go on, you sound like you're going to miss him. Like this is.
I do, right? I'm not going to.
You sound like you're doing a eulogy for Nick Saban. You sound like one of these people leaving oatmeal cream pies by the statue at Bryant-Denny Stadium. What's going on back there? Your brethren are going to sniff you out. They're going to come for you with pitchforks and torches because you sound, Lucas Panzica, graduate of the University of Tennessee, noted VFL. You sound like you miss Nick Saban.
This is so great for the program that I went to school at and that I cheer for. It is great for the rest of college football, but I am in awe of this man. Like, I'm not going to lie about it. And it went from, I'll put it this way, Nick Saban broke me, all right? The first half of Saban's tenure.
Let's do some trauma. Come on.
I despised him, truly. I said, this man is ruining my life every fall. And he broke me in a way that I just had to accept it. And I became in awe of him, and I respect him probably more than I respect any other singular sports figure. Anyway, Steve Sarkisian, social media post, he's staying at Texas. Dan Lanning did the same the other day. And it is interesting that these coaches are coming out, especially a guy like Dan Lanning. I'm not surprised that Sark is going to stay at Texas, that has all the resources that you could ever possibly have at Alabama, and then some. Same goes for Kirby Smart. But I'm going to be wary to say, Alabama getting ready to be humbled in this coaching search. Like I'm seeing a lot of, Alabama's about to figure out what it really is to try and find out. Nobody wants to come coach at Alabama. No, keep your powder dry. Let's wait and see what happens here. Kalen DeBoer is a name that's been listed a lot. I'd be hesitant there. Kalen DeBoer obviously has a great resume at Washington. Does not have the recruiting background, I think, that is necessary to be the head coach at Alabama. But according to Bet Online, Dabo Swinney is the favorite, plus 105. DeBoer is plus 155. Mike Norvell at plus 325. And Florida State's dealing with some NCAA stuff that came down this week. Lane Kiffin plus 900. Those are the top 4 favorites right now, according to Bet Online. But just keep your powder dry on the nobody's going to want to go coach at Alabama thing.
Somebody's going to want to go coach at Alabama.
Last bit of news.
They're
Evan
probably going to be
Stewart,
good, unfortunately, for Tennessee fans.
A&M transfer Evan Stewart headed to Oregon. Big portal commitment for the wide receiver. And a big get for Dan Lanning.
Super wild card weekend. Can we actually talk about some football? We've been super TMZ all week long with the coaching cycle. There are great wild card games. Super wild card weekend is just ahead of us. We're going to talk about it coming up next.
It is 11:02. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The New England Patriots are tabbing defensive assistant Jerod Mayo to be the next head coach of the Patriots. Adam Schefter reported this morning the former Tennessee linebacker was drafted in the first round by the Patriots in 2008, and he played until 2015 before retiring and then joining the coaching staff. The succession plan was reportedly written into Mayo's contract and allows the Patriots to forego the NFL's standard hiring process. Mayo is now the youngest head coach in the NFL at 37 years old. Meanwhile, the first general manager hire of this carousel has happened. The Washington Commanders hiring former 49ers executive Adam Peters. Meanwhile, the Titans continue to cast a wide net with interview requests for the head coaching job in Tennessee, the latest reportedly being Eagles offensive coordinator Brian Johnson. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour on this Friday. Thanks for hanging out with Lucas and myself. Get in there if you want to, 615-737-1045. Lucas, there's football. Do you want to play the sound? We haven't talked about a football game.
Football.
It gets me every time. Just like trailing off in the background, somebody screaming, football! Kills me every time.
I almost hate that we've had the craziest week of maybe our lifetimes in the football news cycle, NFL and or college, on a week where it is a fascinating slate of wild card matchups.
So you got 6 games in super wild card weekend.
It is super.
Okay, relax. Are you... Lucas has been deprived of actual sports talk all week long instead of this nonsense coaching news cycle stuff.
Oh, I love coaching search stuff, too. Don't get me wrong.
Do you? Have you enjoyed this week? Because I honestly have felt like this is the busiest week that we've had all season long.
This week is why we do this stuff. Like, if you are using this week to complain about having this job, you should find something else to do.
I'm not.
Okay.
Relax.
Just making sure.
We do this job because we like doing football games. Yes. Not because of the nonsense. Now who sounds like who? No, this has been an exhaustive week, but it has been a fascinating week and an interesting one for a great many reasons. Tyler Dial says, I love seeing people's first-time reaction to the football sound. Yes, that's courtesy of the Dan Le Batard Show.
People seem to hate it. I'm going to be honest.
Good.
We don't get a lot of positive reviews on that.
I don't care. I love it. So you guys get literally everything else. I get this. I don't care if you don't like it. We're going to play it every time. 6 games. 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and a Monday night game between Philadelphia and Tampa Bay. San Francisco and Baltimore are the number 1 overall seeds in their respective conferences. They are off this week with the bye. So, Cleveland, Houston, Miami at Kansas City, Pittsburgh in Buffalo, Dallas hosting Green Bay. The return of Matt Stafford to Detroit for a playoff game is a fascinating one. And the weekend nightcap, I guess it's a 3-day weekend for everybody else, right? We're working Monday, though.
Yes, we will be on the air on Monday.
Okay, very good. Philadelphia and Tampa Bay. Now, I'm going to let you pick your most interesting matchup, whether that's football, whether that's storylines, however you want to lay this out, because I think I'm going to go with one that you least expect.
Interesting. I am so torn because you mentioned the Matt Stafford return to Detroit. On the flip side of that, you have Jared Goff against the Rams. Detroit's without Sam Laporta. Detroit's secondary has struggled a lot this season.
Do you think Dan Campbell is regretting playing Sam Laporta? I mean,
in the regular season finale.
You have the facts in hand, so it's easy to say, "Oh, that was a terrible decision," but I don't know.
You know what? I'm going to stick with Browns at Texans.
Really?
I am, because I'm fascinated by the dynamics of the weather in Kansas City and in Buffalo, by the way. We've been talking so much about the weather in KC. Look what's about to happen to Buffalo. I don't know if they're going to be able to play these games, to be totally honest.
And they can't go to Detroit like they did last time because Detroit's got a game.
Do you remember what happened the last time the Texans and Browns faced off?
Yes. Did Houston win?
No. 36-22 in favor of Cleveland. Amari Cooper, 256 receiving yards.
That's not Flacco's debut
Not his debut,
but
one of his best games.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco is second.
To answer your question, no, I don't remember at all what happened to that game.
Joe Flacco is second in the NFL in passing yards and passing touchdowns since Week 13, which is when he took over in Cleveland. He would probably be leading still if he played in the regular season finale. Joe Flacco sat out as the Browns were, their postseason situation was essentially locked up.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first matchup since the 1970 merger with teams that committed the most turnovers, the Browns, 37, against the team that committed the fewest turnovers, the Texans, who have committed 14 turnovers in the 2023 season.
And 2 of them were Case Keenum, 2 of those picks.
And the interceptions have gone up a tick with Joe Flacco because he's just out there slinging it. So something's got to give here. Does C.J. Stroud's rookie season continue? Houston, obviously at home as AFC South champs. What Joe Flacco do we get after this regular season run? Does it carry over into the postseason against that Texans defense?
Brother, there's only one Joe Flacco. There's the Joe Flacco that lazily rolls to his right and then just shells you 70 yards down the field because they move the pocket, and he'll be able to do that for the rest of time. Here's the thing. How many times? So you mentioned how often the Browns have turned the ball over, and Flacco's going to put the ball in harm's way. That's just what it is. He's going to take chances. He's going to take risks. He's going to air it out. To his credit, it's more entertaining that way, but there are going to be some moments when that costs you. How many times, Lucas, given that Cleveland is one of the most turnover-ridden teams in football, how many times have they won the turnover battle this season?
17 games. They are the most turnover-ridden. I'll say 6.
3.
Wow.
Only 3 times.
Wow.
Only 3 times have they won the turnover battle this year.
And they're playing with house money. Flacco's playing with house money.
Yo, sure.
So he's not going to dial it back. I don't think Kevin Stefanski's suddenly getting conservative. If he does, it feels like a mistake. Cut it loose, man. See what you can get with Joe Flacco.
Can you imagine if they come out with a conservative Flacco game plan?
Oh, please don't do that. Please don't ruin our Saturday afternoons with that.
This is the playoffs, Lucas. You're putting these coaches into positions, especially turnovers, like the thing that these coaches hate the most. Yeah. It's not just defensive coaches. The league is. Aaron Rodgers, I think, wrecked this for every other quarterback in football, where he's going through entire seasons throwing like 4 interceptions. And so all of a sudden that becomes the standard, where I'm used to watching Eli Manning throw, 11 or 12 in a year. But still out there pushing the ball down the field. Like, there is a level of conservatism to the play. And you've also maximized the efficiency and found ways to minimize turnovers as much as humanly possible, because they're killer. They're killer for obvious reasons. But don't ruin it for the sake of fun. Come on, Stefanski. Let's have a little fun.
Browns, obviously one of, if not the best overall defense in the NFL. They have forced 28 turnovers this year, going up against the least turnover-prone team statistically in the NFL this season at their place in Houston.
So Cosell and I were talking about this game, and you'll hear from Greg Cosell later on in the show. Greg has diagnosed Stroud's biggest weakness in his rookie season as being able to work through man coverage. And there's some stats courtesy of ESPN.com that reflect this. So he's got the highest QBR in the league, Stroud does, against zone, 74. He ranks 27th against man, 39. His QBR decline of 35.1 is the largest from zone to man coverage this season. This weekend, Stroud will face a Browns defense that runs man coverage at the 10th highest rate in the NFL and has the best man defense in the league. 47% of the time they're playing man.
What is your answer on your favorite matchup?
I think that here's the thing. Because it would be fireworks for a moment and then it would immediately sputter out in the divisional round. But I think the idea of Philadelphia going to Tampa Bay and an upset for Baker Mayfield is hilarious.
Everybody's picking it.
Really?
Yes.
Picking Tampa?
That is the hottest upset pick of Super Wildcard Weekend. 1,000%.
Oh, see, I would think Green Bay and Dallas just because people don't trust the Cowboys.
I think it's Philly at Tampa. It's so easy to get to that conclusion with the way Philly is limped to the finish and how poorly they're playing right now. And the Bucs aren't playing good football.
I can't believe people are picking the Bucs over. Well, but
it's a hot upset pick, and which is what makes me think that Philly's just going to go in there and get it done.
I mean, this would be the time to kind of, Nick Sirianni, there's questions about his job. A.J. Brown is not practicing this week and things like that. But here's, again, I don't want to rob everything from Cosell. You should go check out the install. Greg did a great job working through a lot of these matchups. We didn't do every game on the board, but we did talk about the biggest matchups that Greg is watching. And he did bring up the idea of Todd Bowles, them having played Philadelphia in 2 of the last 3 weeks, a Wink Martindale defense. He's obviously no longer with the Giants. But and I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question or not, Lucas, but what is Wink Martindale known for?
Oh, blitz.
Pressure everywhere. Everywhere, right? Everybody, all 11 players on the field are going to find ways to bring pressure in some form or fashion throughout the course of the game. Todd Bowles is kind of like that. And Philly hasn't handled it well this year.
Sure.
So these kind of things, again, matchup driven, and Greg will explain it in more detail for you. You can check out the install on 104.5 The Zone's YouTube page. We also talk when we're going to play a little bit for. Well, I guess we're not going to do that today because Giardi's here. But we will get to that at some point.
Dolphins Chiefs about to be the coldest game in NFL history.
Brother, -30.
Tua is 0 for 4 when starting games in sub 45-degree temps. And the Dolphins' storyline has been what it's been against teams with winning records this year. In Buffalo, though, a winter storm watch has been issued for the Bills-Steelers game as we all wait to see if the Steelers are going to go in and ruin Buffalo's season and Mike Tomlin continue to perform witchcraft with this roster. There will be 65-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Buffalo and over a foot of snow on Saturday. I don't know how they play this game.
Oh, Mike Tomlin lives for this game.
Sure.
Lives for it. That's an interesting upset because Buffalo is, you want to talk about teams limping into the postseason, Philadelphia, Buffalo is the team that seems to have the best. I mean, right now, maybe you could argue the Browns, but the Bills seem to have the best momentum story from regular season heading into the postseason right now. It's not Kansas City. It's not Miami.
Packers are playing. Jordan Love is playing really good football.
He is playing well. We'll talk about why Green Bay and Dallas is interesting for other reasons later on. 615-737-1045 is the number. Buffalo wants to chime in on the wild card round.
I mean, that's where I was going with it. With Green Bay, they got Reed. He's probably the third best rookie of the year. I'm going to have to go with my Green Bay Packers on that deal. That's going to be the interesting game for me. And, you got that Detroit game is also a very interesting game. Y'all have a good morning.
Thank you for the call, Buffalo. A little bit of coaching news in the world of college football. Mike Norvell has put out a Steve Sarkisian, they're putting out college recruiting style hype videos for the coaches just coming back and getting more money and keeping their jobs.
Yes. The Leo Wolf of Wall Street treatment.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Starting to pop up.
Coach Dave McGinnis, he's next.
Life is busy. We could all use some extra time in our day, which is exactly why Two Rivers Ford offers mobile service. We'll bring the service to your driveway at no additional charge. Oil changes, brakes, batteries, the certified technicians at Two Rivers will perform basic maintenance on your vehicle wherever you are, so you'll have more time for moments like this. Schedule your mobile service appointment by scanning the QR code or calling Two Rivers Ford today.
Now, I was disappointed when I got an email earlier this week that was informing me that Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, that Coach Mack was going to be unavailable to us this week because of jury duty. And then, thank God, a follow-up email was sent, and we were informed that Coach Mack would be available to join us on this Friday. Did you get out of jury duty? What happened? Good morning, Mack. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Buck, good morning. No, I didn't get out of anything. I did my civic duty. I was getting ready to the trial that we were getting ready to go to. There's three. I mean, it's quite the process. Have you done it?
I've never done it. Never been selected for jury duty. Thank God.
I was kind of impressed with the whole process. Anyway, the court case that we were getting ready to do, there were three trials set that day. The second, that Monday. The defendant plea bargained. So they said, everybody in this group needs a letter to your employer. Go here. If you don't, put your jury tag on the chair and we'll see you.
What'd they do, Coach?
What do you mean? They plea bargained.
They didn't do anything. They took the plea.
That's all I can tell you.
You're trying to get this man back in front of a judge for disclosing too much information. What are you doing?
I just want to know what the guy
Coach
did.
Mack is always on your side, not my side, and here you are trying to hang him out to dry. Shame on you, Lucas, really. Coach Dave McGinnis's visits are presented by Two Rivers Ford. They'll never hang you out to dry. They are the best in the business. Quality American-made Ford vehicles and award-winning customer service. TwoRiversFord.com. for more information. All right, Mac, I know you've done this a million times this week. I know it's been a long week for everybody. I know that you've got a lot of friends in the coaching industry who are either getting opportunities or losing opportunities, and that's a very real and human process. But just your thoughts on Mike Vrabel, his time here as the coach, and how this organization is going to move forward.
Well, there's the one thing that's constant in this league is change, and so I've been. You're right. I've done a lot of radio hits and commentary across the country on this, and one of the most common questions is, were you surprised? And my reply is very honest. After 38 plus years in this league, I'm not surprised at anything. I mean, when they asked me, are you surprised? I said, I can put you in touch with a guy that was head coach of an organization for 6 hours and didn't know it for 3 in a real national scale. So nothing surprises me. And to me, when these types of things happen, they affect not only the main principal, but my mind always goes immediately back to everybody else that is affected by it. Because I was a head coach. I was fired as a head coach, and I really wasn't concerned about me because once you're set up as a head coach, you're pretty well set up. But you're concerned for your assistants. I had 11 assistants when I was a head coach. Now there's 22 or 23 or more assistants that you have to be concerned of. So that's where my thought process goes to begin with. But the fact that when you look at this, what this business is, the time frame and the life cycle of coaches has shortened, exponentially for the 38 years that I've been in this league. I mean, it used to be you'd come in and you'd have 5 or 6 years because there was no free agency, there was no salary cap, there was a lot of things that were different. Now, the timeline has accelerated so quickly now. There's nothing that really surprises me about changes in this league now, Buck. Nothing.
Well, and to your point about the staff, we asked Rand about this on I guess that was Tuesday afternoon when we met with him after their decision was made that morning, and
right.
and he spoke to the idea of, listen, we're not going to stand in the way of guys pursuing other opportunities. He had mentioned to us that he took time to meet with all the assistants to that effect and to try and take care of people and have that human element of it, and that that people who were remaining under contract were going to be presented to whomever the head coach hire ends up being here, and he can make his evaluations as necessary after the fact. But that's still such a very influx kind of spot to be in as a position coach, as a coordinator, all these guys.
Well, it really is, and I'm glad you brought that up. And let's accentuate the point as to where Rand said we will allow them to seek employment even though they are still under contract. They don't have to let them do that. There's some places I've been where they have not let you do that, and you had to sit and wait until you absolutely found out that you were not going to be retained there. That's a huge gift to assistant coaches. Huge gift.
Oh, Carolina just did it to Ejiro Evero, Mac. They blocked his the Jacksonville's request to interview him. And I've got my own thoughts on David Tepper. We don't get bogged down with that. But I think that's such a terrible way to go about it for people.
Well, I've been blocked myself when I was an assistant coach, and I'm not going to make this segment about everything that's happened to me in my career, but I've been blocked before too. So, but that's the way the rules state, and that's per their purview if they want to as a club. Now, the fact that Amy Adams Strunk is not doing that's a huge gift, to these assistants, and the plus that if you are still here and still want to talk to whoever the head coach that's hired is, you will be allowed to do that. So that's a plus. That still doesn't take the sting away and the uncertainty away. And it's not just the coaches. The coaches are just a visible extension of a lot of families, and the families are what are the big thing in this that I was very cognizant of when I was a head coach, because as I said, as a head coach, I knew I was going to be taken care of, and I knew I was going to get another job. I was concerned about the coaches and their families because that's real life stuff.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Of course, their coverage continues of all things Tennessee Titans. They did an OTP here recently, the official Titans podcast, on everything that's happened over the course of the last week and everything that they produce at TennesseeTitans.com for you to consume.
Coach, with the wild card weekend coming up and the weather that's coming through Buffalo and Kansas City, I'm curious, especially for an offense like Miami's, going into KC, potentially the coldest game in NFL history. Have you ever been in a position where the game plan had to be altered due to the weather, whether it was snow,
Absolutely.
winds, freezing cold, like maybe it will be in Buffalo and in KC?
Absolutely. I coached in Chicago for 10 years. And in December and January when we were in the playoffs, it absolutely is, because it makes a difference. And especially, you know what, it's not really the cold, but just what you mentioned, the wind. The wind is a huge difference. We played Green Bay, one night when, we had to alter so much. Craig Hendrick was a punter for the Packers, and he got the game ball for the Packers because he had a positive punting average in that game. And I think it was about 20 yards, because it makes a big difference. The wind is going to make a huge difference. You can live through the cold. You can work through the cold. You can work through those types of issues. But the wind, and especially if these gale force winds that is coming across the country, especially from the top down, right now we're going to experience some of them here. It absolutely does alter some of the things that you do, especially depending on which direction you're going. And if it's going to be gale force winds, well, it really doesn't matter, whether you're going into it or away from it. It's going to affect any time that. So think of anything where the ball is going to be in the air. It affects that a lot.
That's the thing, Mac. Like just how much. And I remember being in Kansas City a couple of years ago, as we all were for the AFC Championship game, and the degree of, I think it was like -9 or something like that in the sun at kickoff. And of course, as the day wore on, it got colder and colder out there for the players. But like just the degree of difficulty, like as a defensive coach, that they're going to have a harder time just catching the ball. Like how much harder that thing is in that degree of cold.
Yeah, and that's all true. That is 100% true. But you can still navigate. You can navigate cold. You can navigate snow. But any type of driving wind that's driving sleet or things like that, that is where it really, really starts to affect, the ability to be able to do some things. And as I said, with the ball in the air. And the other thing that happens too, when it's windy and those types of things, it can play so many tricks on the football, especially if it's being kicked, and that's both with punting and that's both with place kicking, and if it's being thrown, either direction, that makes a huge difference, Buck. It really does. The cold you can navigate, gale force winds and those types of things, blizzard conditions. That's a whole different story.
Yeah, Pittsburgh and Buffalo is going to be just a very, very interesting, if not good football game. It will be an interesting football game, how they manage the situation there. So 6 games coming up this weekend, Mac, with 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and 1 with Philadelphia in Tampa Bay on Monday night. Is there a matchup on one side of the ball or another out of any of these 6 games that you are most excited to see to play out?
Yeah, I'm really interested in that Rams-Detroit thing. Because it's pretty interesting. The Rams did a nice job this year of navigating their way into the playoffs. It wasn't, a real strong a side that they were working off of, but they managed to. They did a good job. They worked through some injuries. They managed to get in it. Detroit has really been on a really nice run, and they've been on a consistent run. And then you've got the drama between the two quarterbacks, that switch teams, and plus, Detroit not having been there in a long time. Now the Rams being a pretty recent Super Bowl winner, I think all of that makes that a very, very intriguing game. But they're all good because now you're in the playoffs and you've cut everything down. So everybody has a reason to be there, and everybody has a real positive reason that they can win it. But everybody also has a flaw as to where they might not be able to win it. I loved it when I was coaching, being involved in the playoffs, because the one and done just adds. You just knew it just adds a little bit more to it. It really does. And there's the cliche about how the game speeds up. From practice to the preseason, then from the preseason to the regular season, and then from the regular season to the playoffs. But that is the truth, because there is so much so much at stake with every snap. They're all really interesting to watch. But you ask me, the Lions-Rams is what really interests me.
Well, and just to kind of bring it full circle to the coaching element of this, there's so many coordinators and people participating in this postseason that are going to continue basically their resume building for opportunities.
Yes.
As far as head coaching goes. Mac, I don't know, do you have any knowledge of Ben Johnson, the Detroit offensive coordinator? Have you been around him at all? Do you know people who know him?
Yeah, well, I know people that know him. I have not been around him, but I mean, it's clearly evidence. I know Jared Goff, the quarterback that he worked with, that was basically given up on there at the Rams. But I knew, I was at the Rams when we, negotiated the trade with the Titans, and we picked Jared Goff number one over Carson Wentz. Jared Goff was clearly the better thrower of the football, and then the things that he had to learn coming in, and then to see really at this stage in his career, at an advanced stage in his career, what Ben Johnson has done with him and with this offense has impressed me. It's impressed me a lot. Do I know Ben Johnson personally? Do not. Do I know people that know him and that even are working with him now? Absolutely, I do.
He's Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio. His visits are presented by Two Rivers Ford. They're the best. Coach Mack drives a Ford Explorer from Two Rivers Ford. So do I. Ramon Foster, Don Davenport, DeAndre Hopkins, customers at Two Rivers Ford, just like so many other thousands of Middle Tennesseans across the 40 years that they've done business. Mac, have a great weekend. Enjoy the football, and look forward to catching up with you here soon.
But, Lucas, always enjoy visiting with you. See you later, guys.
That's the main man. Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio with us on 104.5 The Zone.
So interviews with candidates that are currently working for playoff teams have to happen. The first round of virtual interviews have to happen before the end of divisional round games on January 21st.
Yes, that is. So there's a lot of different resources that you can look at this. But this is a series of rules for head coaching interviews that have been outlined. A lot of this was impacted by the pandemic. You remember how butthurt people got after the Titans lost to the Ravens and Art Smith had an interview with like the Jets like that afternoon because of Zoom, because you could do these things very easily. And then that became a whole talking point for like a week and a half afterwards, whatever. So teams with open head coaching positions able to begin requesting interviews with other teams starting this week. That's been going on. As Lucas said, those interviews must happen virtually before the end of the divisional round games on the 21st. Carson is in Bowling Green.
Yes, sir.
What's up?
I just wanted to say I think a lot of the underdogs are going to come out with the win. And even more, I think the Steelers come out, pound the run, get the win over the Bills, and then I think they go on and beat the Ravens after that. We've beat them, 7 out of the 8 last matchups. I think we could beat them again. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Well, good luck to your Steelers this weekend. How's Robert feeling with a weekend off of his precious Baltimore Ravens with Lamar? Because the last time that he got a bye week off, the Titans went into Baltimore and kicked his ass.
Yeah, good point. That was the Lamar MVP in 2019. Ooh. Stars aligning? Question mark.
It would make me very happy if Robert came back in after the divisional weekend in tears.
What would be that version? What would be the 2019 AFC Championship run? Who would be that team this year?
Detroit. No,
it wouldn't. No, they're
not.
division champs.
Would it be Tampa?
Tampa or Pittsburgh?
No, Pittsburgh isn't. Pittsburgh is always, even if they're not actually a threat, they're always going to be considered a threat. And he won 10 games this year. Again, I don't know how he did it.
All right. Which of these lines, because Carson's pointing out he thinks it's an underdog-heavy weekend, which of these lines throws up a red flag to you the most? Who do you think is okay, just give me your favorite underdog.
Brother, I'll give you the answer straight up. Whatever the line, I don't know any of the lines on any of these games because I don't bet NFL games just on principle. But Steelers and Bills, whatever the line is, I would stay away from that game. I would run so fast from that game.
Minus 9.5.
Wait, 9.5 in the snow?
In a snowstorm.
Yeah, there is no way. There is no home field advantage in elements like that.
Look, I don't know how they play this game.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm saying travel to the stadium. I don't know how they accomplish it.
Well, you've seen the videos of when they come back from road trips and their cars are just buried in 6 foot of snow.
So
some of them, God, living in those conditions would be my personal hell.
Cleveland at Houston. Who do you think's favored?
Houston, but I bet it's not a full 3.
Cleveland minus 2.5. Miami at Kansas City. Kansas City minus 4.5. We mentioned Bills minus 9.5, favored over Pittsburgh.
That's just a ridiculous line.
Green Bay at Dallas.
Cowboys are favored.
Cowboys minus 7. Rams at Lions.
Lions, I'll give them 3 for home field.
Minus 3. That's right. So essentially a pick 'em.
Right.
Eagles at Bucks.
Eagles are favored.
Minus 3.
Ooh.
This feels like in Detroit setting up for a massive heartbreak spot for Lions fans.
Why would you do that to them?
I'm sorry. That's
Lucas.
just when I look at this
Lucas,
and the
they beat the
storylines going
Chiefs
into
in the
it.
season opener, and they've
I
had
understand.
this miraculous ride
and
through the year.
And it's been fun to watch division champs for the first time since
What is
'93.
wrong with you?
It feel everything in me is expecting drastic heartbreak with Matt Stafford coming into Detroit and stealing the hearts of Lions fans.
Well, the only thing that would be more catastrophic for one fan base than the Lions losing would be the Cowboys losing. I'm not saying that I'm rooting against the Cowboys.
The over-under for Pittsburgh and Buffalo is 34.5. That is an Iowa number right there.
Under and Pittsburgh and the points. -9. That's crazy to me. Okay. Friday Fire. We're going to get into that coming up next. Where does Mike Vrabel land? That's the lead at noon. Stick around. It's 104.5 The Zone.
So this is a small bird, too, for someone
right.
that's never seen a Bob White before. It's this little round softball.
That's right. Yeah, they're not much bigger than my fist. They've got little legs, but they're a ground-nesting, ground-dwelling bird. If they never have to fly in their life, they wouldn't, right? They just do that to get away from hawks and owls for the most part, or hunters. What they need is largely herbaceous plant communities, right? So they need wildflowers. They need a small proportion of grasses. I don't need vast grasslands, right? I need stuff that most people would call weeds. Those are providing good brood cover, good nesting cover, a lot of insects, right? That's what chicks need to develop early.
Bridgestone Firestone is a quail focus or focal area. So tell us a little bit why.
Yeah, it's largely because there are very few places that have wild quail in the state of Tennessee anymore. And there's dozens of different factors that lead into that, right? Everybody wants to jump right to predators, but it's a habitat issue, right? Mm-hmm. It's a landscape change, whether we're talking about development or whether we're talking about fire not being on the landscape anymore, or fields and young forests progressing into closed canopy forest, right? So the farm, just by nature of it being an open landscape that's been maintained that way, has held on to some birds. And compared to most other places in the state, we're one of the very few. On top of that, the potential for growing that population, it's higher here than just about anywhere else.
Sometimes good things just fall into your lap. All you can do is smile. That's going to be the subject of Friday Fire. We do it every week. Let's go ahead and hit it.
Buck Rising is one of the least positive people on the planet. So to combat that, we've installed a new segment where he's forced to be positive. Sponsored by Central Barbecue. This is Friday Fire.
Because it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got shit to do.
That's right. It's made possible by the best barbecue in Nashville. It's Central Barbecue, lunch, dinner, or catering. EatCBQ.com. All right. I got some Friday Fire for you, bud. It's not just that you pointed out to me as we were coming back from the commercial break that A.J. Brown has deleted all Eagles-related content from his Instagram. He has now deactivated his Twitter account. I don't know if this is like a LeBron James, we're going into the playoffs, shut it down type of deal. All I know is the idea that that is out there and that entire city is going to be sent spiraling by that news is laugh out loud funny to me. No, nothing malicious towards Eagles fans. I hold no ill will against you or A.J. Brown. I'm very happy for you both. I want A.J. to win a Super Bowl. I hope he gets that. I cannot stop laughing at the sheer level of panic just going around the city of Philadelphia right now and across the country where all manner of Eagles fans are, because I've lived this news cycle, okay? The A.J. Brown deletes team name X out of his social media account. I know what comes after that. Enjoy that, Philadelphia. That is my Friday Fire. That is laugh out loud funny.
Vibes are not good in Philadelphia heading into the postseason. My Friday Fire goes to NBC New York, Channel 4 in the #1 news market in this country. At NBC New York on Twitter with the news of Bill Belichick parting ways with the New England Patriots. This New York City television station that has over 350,000 followers tweeted this with the link to the breaking news. #breaking. Bill Belichick, who lost 2 Super Bowls to the Giants, is expected to part ways with the Patriots later today, reports say, as a 24-year tenure ends with regular season loss to the Jets. Props, NBC New York, for the most slanted headline of all time, hitting both New York teams.
That's right.
In the process. Good job by the Jets getting the win in the regular season finale so that NBC New York could do this with the shot at the Patriots from both sides, Giants and Jets.
There's not a market in America that hates him or Brady more than New York, right? Because of victories over them with the Giants, because of
I don't know. I think
him haunting the AFC East for 24 years the way that he has.
Jets fans, sure, but I think Giants fans can look at that run and scoff and say, got you twice.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know what
NBC
reason.
New York certainly is.
I don't know what reason Giants fans have. If anything, it's the other way around. Patriots fans should think that they were denied even 2 more Super Bowl titles by the Giants, which they were.
That's great. That's a New York Post-style headline. You think some social media manager is sitting in the building being like, watch this. We're about to do the most impressions you've ever seen on this social media account. Let's go nuts.
Honorable mention for Friday Fire to the bank accounts of Steve Sarkisian and Mike Norvell and Dan Lanning, who, to our knowledge, were not offered or contacted by Alabama. There have been no reports insinuating as much, but all 3 of them, much wealthier men today than they were last week due to Nick Saban's retirement and just by announcing they are staying at their respective programs. Mike Norvell, with an extension, moves his average annual salary to over $10 million a year.
Not a bad gig. Can I do a quick non-football one? Just because it was a really cool story and it's local, and we've talked about Jelly Roll before. He was in Congress yesterday. It's just a really cool moment for a lot of local people who have seen this dude come up through all manner of stuff. Is Jelly Roll one of the most famous people in the country right now?
He's one of the most famous in country music, for sure.
I mean, he's doing New Year's Rockin' Eve, Lucas. He's all over the place this year. He's got an Amazon Prime special specifically about him. He's been selling out stadiums and stuff maybe not stadiums, but arenas and stuff like that. Over the course, it's just been a crazy rise for him over the course of the last year, it would seem. And he was introduced by committee chairman Sherrod Brown of Ohio, as somebody who was able to speak in front of Congress yesterday, advocating for those who are facing drug addiction by speaking with and for people struggling with addiction across the nation. He gave a whole speech about being the person that sells drugs and like all different like because of the fentanyl and stuff like that, fentanyl getting mixed in with all these different drugs, and it's run rampant and all over the place. And Jelly Roll speaking from the perspective of somebody who has sold drugs, somebody who has taken drugs, and how much that can just completely destroy a human being's life. It was really cool. You can check it out on all manner of news outlets, and we're just, we're proud of our friend. I know the local Middle Tennessee community is very, very proud of everything that he's accomplished and the person that he is, and so I just wanted to give him a quick shout out.
Very cool. Very cool.
Awesome.
He's a great speaker, Jelly Roll.
He got a little bit of that Southern preacher to him, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Like the acceptance award, or the award acceptance speech at the CMAs here recently.
Basically a motivational speaker.
Have you met him?
I have not. I have not met Jelly Roll.
Would you describe me as a pretty cynical person?
Yes.
That dude is Jelly Roll might be the most inspirational human being I've ever met in person. And just having talked to the guy and knowing a little bit about him and been around him in a couple of different settings and stuff like that, like that not to get off on a tangent here, but it's that, Lucas, coupled with the fact that there are so many people across the country that identify with that dude and that just drown him in their pain. And he has to be the person that kind of bears the weight of those stories because he's lived it, he's seen it, he's had this insane life across 39 years, and the amount of people that flock to that guy to share just these horrifying, heartbreaking stories of addiction and loss and personal tragedy and all that. And the fact that he eats it, he loves them up and makes them feel like they're the most important person in the world. He is a very, very unique individual. Like I said, I'm a super cynical person. And Jelly Roll might be the first person to kind of make me think differently about like life outlooks and stuff like that. I know that sounds crazy, but anyway, just really cool to see. All right, final hour. Mike Vrabel's not going to be the next coach of the Patriots. Where is he going to be next year? We're going to talk about it next.
It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. It is official in New England. The Patriots have tabbed defensive assistant Jerod Mayo to be the next head coach, replacing 24-year Hall of Fame coach Bill Belichick. The former Tennessee linebacker was drafted in the first round by the Patriots in 2008 and played until 2015 before retiring and then joining the Patriots coaching staff. The succession plan was reportedly written into Mayo's contract and allows the Pats to forego the NFL's standard hiring process. Mayo is now the youngest head coach in the NFL at 37 years old. Meanwhile, the Titans continue to cast a wide net with interview requests for the head coaching job in Tennessee, the latest reportedly being Eagles offensive coordinator Brian Johnson. The first general manager hire of the carousel has happened as former San Francisco executive Adam Peters has been hired as the GM in Washington. It is Super Wild Card weekend in the NFL, kicking off in the AFC Saturday afternoon. Texans hosting the Browns at 3:30, followed by Dolphins at Chiefs at 7 in what projects to be the coldest game in league history. Be sure to tune in to Westwood One coverage of all the NFL action this weekend right here on The Zone. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour on this Friday. Vibes are high. Morale is 2. Get in there. 615-737-1045. That's the number. Where is Mike Vrabel going to land? What do you think is most likely? Do you care as a Titans fan? I'm legitimately curious because Lucas brought this up earlier in the week to me about the Rand Carthon press conference. And I don't want to mischaracterize Lucas, but basically what you said to me is, you talked to a lot of Titans fans after we kind of went on a bit of a tangent about he shouldn't be out there. If he's not going to be able to speak on behalf of ownership, the owner should be out there. Why aren't you telling us what the vision is? Nagging, doing what media people do. I get it. And you said what?
I don't know how many Titans fans. I feel like the media covering the Titans are far angrier about that press conference than Titans fans.
And that may be a fair characterization. I'm not sure. So when I talk about Mike Vrabel and where does he land, do Titans fans care? I think there's a level of intrigue about just, especially now with the New England wrinkle.
Absolutely. Absolutely they care where Vrabel lands.
Well, I just, I want to make sure that we're talking about something that they care about and not doing something that it's like the Ron Rivera line. I hope that I want to talk about something that's important as opposed to interesting, and I don't know which category this really falls in. But it is pretty, it is just a fascinating dynamic to see the way that things have played out because, of course, Jerod Mayo was announced as the Patriots head coach today. We went through the details of that, the fact that that has been in his contract, that he was going to succeed Bill Belichick since January, and nobody found out about it until The Athletic uncovered that last night, according to reports courtesy of Chad Graff. Is it Graff or Groff, the Patriots staff writer? Either way, at theathletic.com. The Patriots were not required to even interview anybody because you saw the tweet, I want to say that it was yesterday, that Diana, after, it was either before or after she was on the show with us, said that she said that the Titans had no interest in Jim Harbaugh and Bill Belichick. Later, there was a discussion about that the Patriots had never reached out to anybody, Belichick, Harbaugh, Vrabel, anybody, about their job because they knew that they had their guy the whole time. It's just nobody else knew that this was in his contract since January. And why they were able to hire him so quickly, the last job that came open, the Patriots, was the first job to be filled. It was a 24-hour turnaround. So they're able to do it so quickly because of the language in Mayo's contract that, again, as The Athletic said, was unknown before Thursday evening, and because of stipulations in the league's anti-tampering policy. and Rooney Rule, which typically requires teams to conduct in-person interviews with at least 2 external minority candidates. When the Patriots reworked Mayo's contract last year to entice him to turn down head coaching interviews elsewhere, they established in writing that Mayo would be the successor to Belichick. Then they communicated that with the NFL. So the entire league got gaslit, and Bob Kraft just sat back there and laughed in a suite with Mike Vrabel and acted like, everything was copacetic. And everything was copacetic. He doesn't need to worry about rumors of Mike Vrabel wanting to coach for the Patriots or the Patriots, the layup or what is it, home run hire, home run successor that Ben Volen said that Mike Vrabel was, according to sources close to the Patriots.
I wonder if Vrabel knew that about Mayo's contract.
Apparently nobody knew until Thursday night.
Yeah, probably not.
Well, I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
I'm sure his agent has been calling around. I'm sure, there are good faith discussions that are had, and somebody was like, hey, honestly, like whether Mike's representation reached out to them, whether they reached out to Mike's representation and said, well, apparently they didn't reach out to anybody. They were just like, this is our coach. We have this.
I am wondering out loud if Mike Vrabel would have handled anything about the last few months differently if he knew that no matter what, Jerod Mayo was going to replace Bill Belichick.
It's a pretty big what if, bud. Because not to put... Everybody has sensitivities, all right? Everybody has emotions. Everybody reacts to things differently than somebody else might. You and I did not react to Mike Vrabel's comments at halftime of the Patriots game that he was being honored at in the same way that clearly Amy Adams Strunk did. That was one of the biggest festering wounds that they had in their relationship, and neither of them decided to address it. I don't know if he's still the head coach here or not, if he doesn't let this thing linger out there because of whatever's happening in New England and what chances he think. I have no idea what Mike was thinking. I don't. Other than he wanted more control over his situation. And, I've been told he didn't want to leave. I know a lot of you don't believe that. That's just what I've been told, that Mike Vrabel was not interested in doing anything besides being the Tennessee Titans coach next year. Now that, people lie all the time, but I feel pretty reliable in who I was talking to about that. And the idea that he would want to stay here, provided that they give him certain things, right? And he was not given those things. So now that relationship comes to an end. This is such a cluster now. And maybe not, because I asked Diana yesterday when she came on the radio show, I was like, how big a mess is this compared to the other messes? And she said, not that bad. Just kind of shrugged it off. This stuff happens everywhere. It's just, it's pretty visceral because Mike's who he is, and he's been here longer than average. And it's a decision that the fan base wasn't expecting. So that none of what the fan base was expecting came to fruition. That Mike Vrabel would not be fired, that he would be more likely to be traded, that Mike Vrabel would be more likely to be traded to the New England Patriots, and that Mike Vrabel would end up being the Patriots head coach, that a bunch of different things happened, and not any possible way could you have pictured it playing out this way, is what makes this stuff so fun and compelling, but also begs the question, what's he going to do next year? Teams don't have to request to interview him. He's available to interview. Now, I had a follow-up at A2ZSports.com on what Joe and Diana wrote, and a part of that was the idea that something Diana and I talked about yesterday on the radio. I've heard a handful of people close to Vrabel say he's not necessarily gung-ho about immediately jumping right back into the next job. Like that there's going to be some time taken on this, whether that's because he knew the Patriots job was not viable or whatever his logic is. Basically, it's been a tough 2 years on everybody in that organization, and it's worn on Mike just the same as it's worn on Amy and worn on everybody. It's not been fun for anybody the last 2 seasons. Now, I don't know what's more likely in this situation. I would say just given how many more how many more opportunities there are in the world of coaching and who he is, it's more likely that he's coaching somewhere than just chilling or doing TV or whatever opportunities might be presented to him.
I will say the months of people, us included, telling Titans fans, hey, Mike Vrabel gets let go, teams are going to be falling over each other to try and hire him tomorrow. That's about to get tested.
Well, he's got a market.
With 6 openings.
He's got a market.
Sure.
And he's going to interview.
Sure.
He's going to meet with teams. Like, he's going to go through all of this. Now, can you, because you're right, Titans fans absolutely sick of the idea of, well, Mike Vrabel, what is, he's being talked about like he's Belichick or somebody else out there. Like, he has not won a Super Bowl. He's not won an AFC championship. He's won a couple of divisions and had some good years. But, I mean, when we talked about that this season, there was never any indication that he might, if it was not here, and with the New England variable out there, I don't know that I would not have imagined that there would be a scenario in which he took some time off. I don't know 100% that he's not going to be a college football coach next year, but I think that environment for coaches everywhere is such a, you got to really want that level of stress in your life that is so much more than what it is to be a professional coach. And the idea, we haven't talked about the idea of him being a coordinator anywhere. I don't know that Mike Vrabel is going to be working for somebody. And by the way, that may cost him opportunities. And this is all just a part of the intrigue in it. Now, the reason why it matters for the Titans as an organization, it may not matter to you as a fan base, but to the organization, they have a ton of money that they're paying him. They have eaten so many millions of dollars on John Robinson's extension and now Mike Vrabel's extension that they're hoping that both those dudes get a job somewhere else so they can offset some cash. But that both of them, or John took a year off. John wasn't, I mean, he made a couple of visits in training camp and stuff like that, but he didn't get back in right away. I think it's very viable. And I think Mike Vrabel thinks it's viable, that the best decision might be to let things play out, given how, combustible everything was around here for the last couple of weeks. Michael is in Clarksville up next.
What's going on, guys?
Yo,
so, we all know that Mike Vrabel is he's a leader of men. If he's in the right spot, he can take your team to the next level, sort of like how he did here taking over for Mike Malarkey. I don't think Vrabel's interested in taking any of these positions to where he had to rebuild or, he would have tried to fight to stay here. I think he's going to sit back and watch these playoffs because if Sean McDermott or Mike McCarthy both get early exits, the Bills and the Cowboys job could come open, and Bill Belichick and Mike Vrabel would be perfect for both of those, man. I just want your thoughts on that. I'll sit back and listen.
I've heard Dallas for Mike. If something happens to McCarthy.
Who would be in more danger?
McCarthy.
You think if Sean McDermott loses on Saturday, he's in no danger?
Not no danger, but who's in more? You didn't ask me who's in no danger. You asked me who's in more danger. And the Dallas Cowboys head coach is always in more danger because Jerry's getting older and older, and he wants a Super Bowl worse than anything in the world. And he is at a point in his life where now it's no longer, all right, Jason Garrett is content to kind of exist in this structure that I've created for him. We can keep Jason Garrett as long as this is viable. Now he's, I don't want to say he's always pressed. It's not like Jerry has ever desired anything but more championships.
It's the wild card in this coaching carousel. Is the possibility of somebody. Who else can we look at as you lose on Super Wild Card weekend and eyebrows get kind of raised a little bit?
Tomlin.
Yeah.
To hear Pittsburgh media tell it, and Steelers fans have been miserable all year, so they're not.
Yeah. The Belichick thing was expected all season. I still think I'm at a stage where I'll be very surprised if Mike Tomlin's not the head coach of the Steelers next season.
Actually, Lucas, I'll give you a couple. I don't know what the future of Todd Bowles is. Nick Sirianni feels like he's kind of on shaky ground. Like there's a lot more variables. Now, I'm not saying, can you imagine if Vrabel went to coach the Eagles? That, I take it back. Bill Belichick going back to the Patriots would not be the funniest outcome in all of this. Mike Vrabel somehow ending up as the coach of the Eagles in some kind of alternate universe would be laugh out loud. I know it would not feel good for Titans fans. I'm not laughing at you, I swear. I just think comically, like, that would be hilarious. I don't know how it would work. I don't know that they would ever do it. I don't know that he would even be considered, but
Todd Bowles feels safe to me. Running it back next year with Baker.
They've overachieved by any stretch of the imagination.
And it feels like they're gonna feel like they're in a good position to win the division again next season. Be surprised if Todd Bowles is on any sort of hot seat. But I don't know.
I mean, we didn't know that Pete Carroll was going to be, we didn't call it pushed out. We called it gently shoved because he's he's not a fragile old man. He's out there running, playing all-time quarterback at Seahawks practice and having the time of his life at 72. Anyway, Mike Giardi of the Boston Sports Journal is going to join us. We'll talk to him about the hire of Jerod Mayo. We'll talk to him about the non-hire of Mike Vrabel and what that means for this coaching carousel that continues to spin on and on. Your phone calls are also welcome. 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Mike Giardi going to join us here in just a minute. Let's do some phone calls in the meantime. We got Louisa up first on this Friday. What's happening?
Hi. Great show, great station, and I just have to say that it seems like it may appear, this is just my assessment, that the coaching search may look like, confetti being thrown in the air, and they said, okay, catch a certain color. But I am guessing that Miss Amy has a plan in place. And, again, I called on another show and said that she's a shrewd businesswoman. And I also wanted to touch on the guy that called earlier.
Please do.
That he seems to have there's a lot of moving parts, clearly, in the NFL in what anything is done in business. But he seems to have mommy issues, which he probably needs to get over because he's quite, frankly, a moron. And I just can't wait to see how this is going to pan out with the Titans. There's a plan in place. And I think most of the Titan fans understands this. And, again, this is going to be good. It's going to work out. So, but I'll sit back and listen.
I agree with your assessment. Thank you for the call, Louisa.
We call people like that compensators, Louisa.
Mouth breathers. Compensators is probably the most accurate assessment. Some people have macro problems. Some people, Louisa, have micro problems. That would seem to be the issue with our friend from earlier.
But them's the break.
I know it, Boris. It's a tough scene. Well, don't put that on Boris. Now Boris is going to be associated with microgenitalia. Anyway, Ethan is Alabama next.
Hey, man, I just wanted to know, I don't really know, the schedule it is for, hiring coaches. What's, the real date we have to get head coach hired from, is it after the Super Bowl, or is it what's a good schedule, or how do they usually go about doing these things?
All right, I'm probably going to have to read this a bunch of times in the next couple of weeks. That's cool, and I appreciate the question, Ethan. So, teams with open head coaching positions, you can start requesting this week. The interviews must happen virtually before the end of the divisional round games, which is on the 21st. The league recommends that teams with open head coaching positions use that virtual interview window to set up the initial interview. So teams are eligible to request a second interview with a candidate from a Super Bowl team during the bye week. Teams may not interview, this is courtesy of the league, may not interview employees of other teams that didn't make the postseason until the third day after the employer's team's Week 18 game. So there's all manner of interview requirements, but the dates that you need to know are the 17th, the 22nd, and the 29th, starting January 29th through February 4th, is when second interviews, either in person or virtual, are allowed with head coach candidates by teams in the Super Bowl, if that is the path that you choose to go down. So basically, between now and the Super Bowl, the next month, and really, I would say probably, I don't think there's going to be a bunch of teams that have head coaches next week. And I think I was kind of casual with that earlier in the week without clarifying why, but that was pre the Jerod Mayo contract, where you have a situation where the team doesn't even have to go through an interview process because they've informed the league and turned that around that quickly. Just kind of like Pete Carroll, right? The Pete Carroll thing was worked out before anybody had an idea of what was going on until the news broke. So there's all kind of provisions that can upend the conventional timeline, but between now and the Super Bowl is what we're kind of looking at right now.
The flurry of reports on who they have requested to interview has ceased a bit. I believe Brian Johnson of Philly, the OC up there, is the last one that we got.
I haven't seen one since then.
Yeah,
but
and
listen, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of it. So if we missed one, we're happy to circle back. But I have not seen a new interview request made by the Titans since Brian Johnson, the Eagles' offensive coordinator, yesterday.
Yeah, but of candidates that currently work for other teams, which I don't know of any that don't, there seems to be kind of a foundation set from those names.
So just for the context on the college coaches, there's nothing to really address college coaches in the NFL's structure for the interview process. So they can interview it mentions specifically Jim Harbaugh. Teams can interview those coaches, such as Jim Harbaugh, who has reportedly generated NFL interest right now. So you can interview Harbaugh as soon as you want. Or, I mean, there's not really another college coach out there that's being talked about professional opportunities, right? Doesn't mean that that's not being discussed by organizations.
Not that I've seen, no.
I haven't seen that anywhere. Mike Cole says Brian Johnson, the Eagles OC, is his least favorite of the candidates. There's so much that people pick favorites before they actually know who these guys are. Like, you're generally familiar with the body of work, and you know that the Eagles are having problems on offense this year.
And look, Mike Vrabel's resume, when he was hired by the Tennessee Titans, is not one that you would have looked at surface level just on paper and said, that's him. I want that guy. And Mike Vrabel is a good head coach and obviously elevated that team, but just never know what's being unearthed in these interviews.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, your success or your failure as a coordinator does not dictate what kind of head coach you'll be. Mike Vrabel was a bad defensive coordinator. He was a good coach. Not a great coach, but a good coach.
Brian Johnson was the quarterback's coach in Philly before he was promoted to be the offensive coordinator this year, because obviously Shane Steichen went to Indy. Before that, he was the offensive coordinator at Florida under Dan Mullen in 2020. Was the QB coach at Florida as well in 18 and 19.
You can find me for this if you want to, but do you remember our last exchange with Brian Johnson?
No. Have we had an exchange with Brian Johnson, the Eagles offensive coordinator?
Indeed we have.
Do tell.
We had to pull him away from Kirby Allen Kirby, telling him entirely too many stories at the Combine at a bar in Indianapolis.
That's not a fine. That's just true. Yeah, that's hilarious. That's so funny.
You don't remember, but that was the Eagles OC at the bar with us, Lucas.
That's right. Well, Kirby it's insane the amount of, like, being at the Combine is weird because you're just at a bar and, like, standing over here is Mike McDaniel talking to someone, and standing over here is Eagles offensive coordinator Brian Johnson.
Find yourself twice
with his arm around Kirby Allen Kirby. It's like an alternate reality.
He was holding court with half the league's coaching staffs in that tiny little corner of Prime 47 that we were stuck in. It was like a log jam. I love the Combine. It's my favorite thing in the world. I can't go. I really, Combine week is my favorite week of the season. It really is. Like, games are great, but Combine is spring break for all of us, and everybody's together at the same restaurants and bars, and the fact that we get to take Kirby as our sideshow, who turns into the main event everywhere we go, is the best. But yes, that was the Eagles OC. What the hell? Where's Giardi?
He's ghosting us.
What do you mean? Should I call him on the air? Do you think he'd cuss? I kind of want to do that, like call him from my personal cell phone while we're talking.
Sure.
I think that would be a fun exercise. So Mike Giardi of the Boston Sports Journal is supposed to join us. It says sure when I texted him at 9:15 this morning. Hopefully, just be prepared with the dump button.
Yes, sir.
Why are you picking up my personal phone? You're on the air right now, just so you know. Why are you picking up my personal phone calls and declining Lucas's request to appear on this radio show?
He makes one phone call. I see it late. I go to pick it up. He's not there, and that's it. He doesn't call back.
Call him back, Giardi. Mike Giardi will be with us momentarily. We should do that more often to people until one of them cusses.
I heard him pretty good. We probably could have just done the segment like that.
All right, call Giardi. Oh, there he is. Lucas will get him dialed up here in a second, and we'll ask him what the hell is going on in New England right now. With everything that's going around the league, Mike, so I guess let's start with thank you for finally picking up your phone and doing what you said you would do, following through on your commitments and things of the like. What has your morning been like?
I don't think there's been a lot of sleep here recently. I'm sure you guys are feeling the same in Nashville. But I think, sort of leading into yesterday, kind of feeling like that was going to happen, and then getting a sense pretty much even before the reports came out about Mayo today that Mayo was going to end up being the guy and that there was really going to be no search. It sort of, I guess, created a little bit of a sense of calm in that regard. Like, oh, well, we don't have to worry about that aspect of it because it's going to be over quick. And sure enough, it is. They named Mayo the head coach, and Come to find out, you can put that in the contract. I didn't know that was in an advanced contract, and I've seen some examples now of it, but I didn't know that was a thing until last night.
Nobody did, apparently, according to the reports on this. So they avoid the full-on coaching search. We've talked about this morning. They were the last coaching job to become available. They're the first coaching vacancy to be filled with this built in. Why did they spend the entire season, Mike, letting everybody under the sun gaslight this Mike Vrabel thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really is. I don't have an answer to that. It's funny, you kind of go back and look at it, and Jerod's always been one who's been very comfortable in his own skin. And in some of our conversations with him this year, as we get the coaches every week, the coordinators, but of course this place doesn't have coordinators other than Bill O'Brien, so you kind of bounce around to different people.
And he's a gem. I've done meetings with Bill O'Brien before. That's a pleasant experience.
Well, you know what? This year he was good to us, but it may have had something to do with the fact that his offense was terrible, and it made no sense to engage us in fights. Rather, just sort of accept that it's not good and try to curry some favor. I don't know, but Jerod spoke all year long like there was this confidence about him, and even just a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if you guys probably weren't monitoring it because you're monitoring your own situation, but my boss, Greg Bedard, who obviously had got you guys going with the Vrabel stuff a couple months ago, had a report where, Mayo's rubbing some people the wrong way inside the building. And we failed on our first attempt with Mayo to ask him. I think we were all kind of brain dead. But the second time around we got him, he was asked multiple questions about it. And the way he handled it was like textbook. Like, yeah, initially it hurt me, but then I did some self-reflection. Like, is that my weak spot? Am I someone that, because of my confidence and my abilities, does that present to people the wrong way? And then taking it even further and saying like, but then, as a leader, he's like, not everyone's supposed to just be like, whatever you say goes. He's like, you want differing opinions. And so, it was really, especially coming from here, as you know, Buck, like Bill wouldn't, pee on you if you're on fire. To get an answer like that was quite telling, I think, kind of looking back on it, just how comfortable he was in this environment and probably knowing and have known for a little while here that this season was going to be the season he got elevated and not after the contract was up in 2 seasons because of the way Bill had run the program and how they bottomed out this year.
Mike, how are Patriots fans taking this?
It's boy, I'll tell you, it's a great question, Lucas.
You just answered it. What do you mean? There's nothing that
you don't have to say anything else.
Yeah. Well, because interestingly enough, so as the year went on and it became clear, like they could do something here sooner than you expected. You get the Bill pushback, the Bill Bobo pushback, like it's, they're still the Bill we trust, even though they say, hey, look, your record over the last 4.5 seasons is like 33-44 or something. You've been to the playoffs once. You got beat by 30 points. You've had 3 of the last 4 years that have been losing seasons. Anywhere else, it's not even a question, right? The guy's gone. In fact, anywhere else, when you're 2-10 in the middle of this run, as they were at one point this year, the coach doesn't survive. Like that's a mid-season, see you later. We're going to move on to the interim guy, and we're going to have to figure this out in the offseason. We're getting a head start on all of it. But because it's Bill, and because of the respect ownership has for all that he did for them and all that he accomplished, they just sort of let it play out. And then they played better down the stretch. Not great, but they won a couple games, right? And they sort of like, they're responding to Bill, to which I said, yeah, there is a little bit of that, but there's also half this roster is not under contract for next year. Like, it's staggering how little members of the roster, including key guys on the roster, are locked up beyond this season. So, like, it really became to me more about, okay, I can't put out bad tape. I don't think I'm going to be here next year, or I might not be here next year, and I got to get my dollars, and we stink. So I better show something here in the last 5-6 weeks that gets me to a place that when I get to free agency, whether it's a new staff here or somewhere else, that I can get my money. And let's face it, like they all should feel that way, right? You you have a finite time in the league. You need to earn your bank, but it definitely created an interesting vibe. And I would just say even now, there's people like, well, you can't guarantee that you're going to have somebody better than Belichick. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's everything. You can't guarantee you're going to have a better quarterback than Tom Brady ever. You still have to have one. You still have to, eventually you still have to make that decision. So I think there's a lot of, I like Mayo, but shouldn't we have gone through with a full search? And there are definitely a lot of people here who would have loved Vrabel to be the next guy. But, they made that decision long ago. That was not the case.
What do you make of him, Vrabel?
I mean, look, to me, he still should vault to the top of everybody's list. The moment that happened, I think he should have vaulted to the top of this list. And again, I could just kind of bring it back to here. Like, I still can't believe that they backed themselves into a corner where, for as great as they think Mayo could be, for the first time in 24 years, you had an opportunity to bring in a bunch of different people and talk to a bunch of different people and get a bunch of different ideas. And maybe somebody blows you out of the water, like Mike Tomlin did for Pittsburgh. It was going to be Ken Wisenhunt. Tomlin got the interview, and they're like, no, it's Tomlin. And I'd say that's worked out fairly well for them. So there's that part of it. But I just started looking around the league and like, you'd be a fool to not want to bring him in. He has an excellent track record, just a few years removed from being in the AFC title game. The roster obviously was a mess, and he's going to have to answer some questions about what was his influence on that. But I just think in terms of the way his players responded to him, the way you saw in the aftermath of him getting fired, and then his in-game acumen, which I know you guys pick apart, and I know there's been some fourth down decisions or whatnot, but like, I think he's really, really good at that. I think he's one of the better ones in the league. And I think when you look around the league, there's a lot of bad in-game coaches, guys who can give you a great game plan, but then on Sunday, they crap themselves. I don't think Mike's that guy.
Are you surprised, though, that he tried to go toe-to-toe with an owner and clearly underestimated her, Giardi?
I would have great questions were I a Tennessee Titans fan, a season ticket holder, about what my owner is trying to do and if she's doing the right thing. And turning it over to Ran was curious at the time. I think you and I talked about it at the time. I know you've talked about it. You probably talked about it a million times.
Mm-hmm.
And then deciding here that Rand Carthon is sort of the guy that's going to lead you into the future. This whole collaboration thing. I don't know if it's the right thing, man. I don't.
Just say you think it's full of bleep, Mike. What are you couching? You're doing Boston sports radio hits now.
I don't even know why I'm couching it,
because
I don't know Amy that well.
Okay.
So I don't want to obliterate Amy because I don't have any real relationship with her. But yes, from my perspective, I think a lot of these owners, they may have made a ton of money. They may be excellent businessmen. I think a lot of them, and women, but I think a lot of them, when it comes to their football teams, don't know what the hell they're doing. Just go and look at Carolina. David Tepper's worth billions and billions of dollars. He can buy and sell you and I 1 million times over, and he literally has become Dan Schneider in 5 years. He is the worst owner in the league. And Miss Amy, as you guys like to refer to her down there, Miss Amy might be working her way into the conversation if this backfires.
That is an interesting perspective from Mike Giardi of the NFL Network, of the Boston Sports Journal. At Mike Giardi is where
they were too stupid to keep me.
I know.
I had to take a shot, Buck.
It's a force of habit. I didn't mean to do it. Come on.
Well, can I say dick move? Was that kind of a dick move?
Yeah, you can. Lucas will dump it anyway.
A Richard move.
A Richard move. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, guys.
That's my.
It's amazing to think.
I didn't mean to do it.
About very specific things that have happened in the course of football history and the butterfly effect of the Steelers being about to hire Ken Wisenhunt before Mike Tomlin crushes the interview. The alternate reality that would have been Ken Wisenhunt, the head coach of the Steelers. Now, to his credit, he took the Cardinals to the Super Bowl after that and played the Steelers and lost before the disaster with the Titans. But things like that, like what if Nick Saban had gotten Drew Brees at Miami and had not gone to Alabama, and we wouldn't have any of the conversations that we were having this week about his retirement.
So, as fascinating as those things are to think about, last call for phone calls, and Alabama is reportedly honing in on a candidate, according to ESPN. We'll tell you what's in their report coming up next. I mean, that's typically the sign that the week's over. But, Lucas, I don't know. This feels like the longest week in the history of the show.
The Titans beat the Jags at Nissan Stadium like 5 days ago.
I don't believe you. I was there. I swear to God, I was there. I don't believe you that was 5 damn days ago. I'm exhausted. But that's okay. It's been fun. It's always fun. You guys make this fun, unless you're the dude with the micro genitalia that called in here earlier. That's fine.
Can I give you a tip?
You may.
Maybe don't use that word as much as you use it on the radio.
Do you want me to say the other words? I can be anatomically correct.
No, that's
I felt that was more FCC safe than being anatomically correct. I can do that, but you flinch every time I do.
We have news.
Alabama is according to ESPN, honing in on their guy. So this is courtesy of Mark Schlabach and Andrea Adelson of ESPN. Sark and Mike Norvell, they're back at their respective colleges. Alabama's search for Nick Saban's replacement is now focusing on Washington's Kalen DeBoer. Sources told ESPN tight offensive coordinator Tommy Rees will also be interviewed, which I made a joke, like just an offhand, tongue-in-cheek joke about it's not going to be Tommy Rees, but apparently he's getting an interview, so let me not sleep on Tommy. Does that surprise you at all? I mean, if Lanning, Norvell, Sark, who are the other? Harbaugh's either going to the pros or going back to the Michigan, so that's not necessarily in play.
The only drawback, if I'm putting myself in the shoes of an Alabama fan, is there's no way to know how Kalen DeBoer will recruit in the SEC. And I suppose there was no way to know that when Nick Saban was hired by LSU from Michigan State. Tennessee fans had those uncertainties when Josh Heupel was hired out of UCF. But Kalen DeBoer is a fantastic candidate that has been a fast-rising star in the business and did an incredible job with Washington over the last couple of years. But he has been a candidate, a name that's floated around throughout this process. So we'll see what happens.
So with that, obviously Penix is moving on to the draft this year, and Kalen DeBoer, who spent time with Michael Penix, allegedly at Indiana, according to Lucas, before going to Washington together and appearing in the national title game, has really had a bit of a meteoric rise. Now, right now, just because this is a news update and we've been talking about this, teams have been told that the noon slate for Sunday is set, like they're moving forward as planned. The NFL is monitoring weather conditions as it does for all games, so just keep that in mind.
And that's the Buffalo game.
It's the Buffalo game. Heavy lake effect snow bands. Gusty winds will occur east of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Not to give you the Buffalo weather, but just for the purposes of betting. If you're betting that Pittsburgh Buffalo game, buyer beware on all of it. I can't believe that's Buffalo -9. Either way, long story short, Alabama honing in on Kalen DeBoer at Washington.
Nick Saban tried to hire Ryan Grubb, DeBoer's offensive coordinator, last offseason. Grubb chose to stay at Washington. If that were to come to pass, that would be my first thought. Does Ryan Grubb come with DeBoer and end up the OC at Bama under a different head coach, or is Ryan Grubb a candidate to be promoted at Washington as the next coach of the Huskies as they head to the Big Ten?
Last call for phone calls quickly. Daniel is in Columbia.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you taking my call. I am a little tired of the national media coming on and acting like this is just the worst thing ever for Vrabel to be fired. I understand we are the mid of the mid-market teams. No one ever really talks about the Titans. But the fact is Vrabel was 13-21 in his last two seasons, and they're acting like it is just bonkers that he got fired. When you have that type of record like you did and you go into your boss's office and say, hey, you know what, I want full control, you're not going to get it. So for people to think that this guy has done anything to warrant that type of power or him wanting that power is just ridiculous to me. And to hear that guy just come on and say, well, Amy Adams Strunk, this might, sink her or whatever. Well, I mean, what does he know? Like, he's done he's in Boston. They don't know anything about what we do here, and for him to act like Vrabel is just untouchable, along with the national media, is just weird to me. So thank you for taking my call.
Of course. Mike Giardi did used to work at the NFL Network, so he is very, very well connected around the league. I'll just preface that. Before he was at the Boston Sports Journal, but he's based out of Boston. Polls.
Stop the count. Stop the count. The polls have closed and the votes have been tallied. Now, here's your favorite Buck Rising Show correspondent, Lucas Polzica.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. Does Mike Vrabel coach or sit out in 2024? 62% say sit. Ed replies and says, I think you'll probably have to sit. How many GMs are keen on bringing in a head coach that just lost his job in a failed power play? He may be seen as a top coach, but I don't know how many owners think he's quote-unquote earned full control of their organization, which I asked Diana about yesterday, and she said, no, it's probably not going to affect him in the job search, which I thought was interesting.
And the fact that 62% of the audience thinks he's more likely to sit is kind of crazy to me.
What is the best Super Wild Card weekend matchup? Karen likes Lions and Rams. Steven says Browns-Texans, only because he lives in Houston and he's not rooting for the Texans. Storyline-wise, everybody's in agreement. Lions, Rams, Matt Stafford, the return to Detroit.
Yes.
What is your vision? Your vision for the future of the Tennessee Titans?
Not theirs, because they won't tell you.
Brian says hire a head coach that can game plan and coordinate the team like a conductor. The head coach brings in experienced coordinators responsible for calling plays and do such a good job that they're being interviewed for head coaching positions sooner rather than later. Jay says elite offensive coach, elite front office, and scouting staff that knows how to build a deep roster. Ian says with Spears and Levis in place, it reminds me of the Saints offense with Breeze and Kamara. If we can bolster the O-line and wide receiver core, that style would suit down to the ground.
Let's not put Breeze and Kamara as the burden of Levis and Tajay Spears. They just got here, guys.
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. We had a great time this week. Thanks for hanging out. Blaine and Mickey going to keep the fun going. They're coming up next.